Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George,
My name is Tom.
and with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. There's a hole in your vote count, dear Liberals, dear Liberals. There's a hole in your vote count. You got a hole in the head.
Oh,
So
what a day to be alive.
I've just spent the day overdosing on Schadenfreude. I've just gotten some Schadenfreude straight to my fucking cerebral cortex, and I think it's ruined me. I think it's ruined me for all other elections.
Oh, I think the benchmark for what like a good day is, I think, has just completely changed. Like, I don't know about you, George, but did you just wake up this morning and things just like it was a good morning?
Yeah.
Like it just felt there was an aura to the world.
Mhm.
It was just a little different than the day before. And I hadn't noticed that there was something different about the aura to the world until it had changed.
I think it's what people describe as an afterglow after a psychedelic event, where they've taken, say, magic mushrooms or LSD or something the night before, and then everything the next day kind of looks a little bit brighter, glistens a little bit whiter. The things, yes, the skies are clearer, the music's better, and that's how it feels when you absolutely tiddly trounce the Liberals at the fucking election. Eat shit, Scott Morrison. Now, Tom, I believe you had an invitation that you wanted to rescind to the now former Prime Minister. God, it feels good to say
yes.
Former Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
Yes, I was going to say, if I could just, before we launch into the incredibly well-researched, nuanced, and in-depth analyses and reporting that we are, of course, known for here at Unnatural Selection, if I could just take a personal moment. Scott, mate. It's been a hell of a run, isn't it? Like, it's just been an amazing time, and you achieved so much in your tenure, shall we say?
Too much, some might say.
As Prime Minister, some might say too much. And unfortunately, one of those things that you did not manage to achieve before we booted your ass out of Parliament involved my ass and the eating thereof from you of my ass that you were more than welcome to have come and done for, I believe I raised this invitation nearly a year ago.
Woe these many months.
Yep, woe these many months. You didn't take me up on it, but now I'm going to get ahead of this and I'm going to say I'm sorry. I hereby rescind the open invitation for you, Scott Reginald Morrison, whatever his middle name is.
I believe his middle name is Fuckhead, actually. Yeah.
Scott Fuckhead Morrison, of course. Scott Fuckhead Morrison, you no longer have an open invitation to come eat my ass. My ass is only available for winners. Back to the show.
Thank you, Tom. So as you might have heard, Anthony not sleazy, is going to be the next Prime Minister of Australia, Australia's 31st Prime Minister.
Yep. As of tomorrow, because we work fast. None of this, hey, there's 3-4 months of just bullshit that America does. 9 a.m. Monday morning, get on it.
Yeah, so the election was won by Labor last night, and we'll go into some of the details as to exactly what that means. But basically, Anthony Green, everyone's favorite little pocket-sized election specialist, declared it towards the end of the evening that it was not possible for the coalition government to form a majority. And so therefore Labor would be governing either as a minority or potentially as a majority government, depending on what the other seats did. And we're still sort of sussing all of that out. There's been quite a bunch of postal votes this election, which take a while to count for whatever reason. So, but what we do know is that it has been a bloodbath for the Liberal Party.
Bloodbath.
And you love to see it. You love to see everyone that you've ever heard of and been annoyed by on Sunday morning talk shows spouting their dumb fucking talking points. You just love to see them lose their fucking jobs. So Jason Falinski is a big one. It looks like Treasurer and man who would be king, Josh Frydenberg, is set to lose his seat in Kooyong. Tim
I think it's a
Wilson.
done deal. It's been called.
It's been
I
called.
think that one. That's been called. It's not a seat in doubt, according to the ABC. So
Yeah.
I think any kind of doubt at this point is Frydenberg being a massive sook and refusing
what
to
about
concede.
the postals though? There could be 8 to 10,000 postal votes just for me and nobody else. Probably not, Josh. So yeah, that means Dr. Monique Ryan is set to become the member for Kooyong. Yeah, a swathe of teal independents. It more or less was the wipeout that we're all hoping and praying for. I'm an atheist, but I still prayed for a Liberal Party wipeout. It's good news. It's a good time.
It's just great. I've been thinking about it all day. Like, I've just had a smile on my face.
I'm just really, as a lefty, it's really good to not just have moral victories, but to have actual victories.
To have actual victories? Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely the as a lefty part that I think's the right attitude as well. Because I'm like, as a lefty, you're very rarely, like, proud of your country.
Right.
And last night, I was very proud of my country. Like, we're a fucked up country. There's so much wrong with us. And the Labour Party aren't, like, brilliant or inspiring by any stretch.
Sure.
But we all saw the bullshit, the spin, the corruption, and we said no.
And we said, nay. Not today, Satan. Not today.
Not today, Satan.
The thing that I thought was so funny is it's funny, almost all of ABC's political analysts, I feel like kind of like very much institutionalists. Like I think they're probably left of the coalition, for example, but like I wouldn't describe them as left wingers by any means. Like David Spears came from Sky News. Like it's just I feel like they get a lot of commentators on that aren't necessarily like the comrade David Spears that the right wingers make him out to be. But yeah, a lot of the commentary was just kind of like very odd to me, very, very institutional in that like Labour won government. And like on the panel last night, Tanya Plibersek, who's a senior member of the Labour Party, was on there along with Simon Birmingham from the coalition. And basically they were saying, oh yeah, like it hasn't been that good of a night for you, Tanya. Has it? Like you only got 30% of the primary vote. Yeah, like what'd you do wrong?
Why is Labor? What has Labor done wrong to lose seats to Independents and the Greens?
Yeah,
I was like,
but we won government.
But my guy's about to be the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Like what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? Win?
Yeah. Yeah, but you didn't win hard enough. So that means you must have failed in some way. Let's talk about how the Libs are going to get back in 3 years.
It was probably, all the people, all the journos on the panel had earpieces on. They were probably just hearing in the ear, like, bias, don't do it. Like, balance, got to get that balance.
So balanced, so fair and balanced, just like Fox News.
So fair and balanced.
It's it's good.
It's just fascinating. I think just to give context, I guess, to listeners who weren't paying attention to it as much, was that not only the way that the numbers looked at going in was that for the Labour Party, in order to form a majority government, so like the expectation of them being able to run the country in their own right, have enough votes within their own party to be able to pass legislation and not have to appease the crossbench or the opposition. They would have needed to gain 7 seats, providing they retained all the 69 that they had from the last election. What happened though was some of the seats that they were hoping to gain went to independents, as we've talked about a lot over the past couple of weeks, that there was a huge movement of independents running for office this time around. Some of them, referred to as the teal independents, as they, had similar marketing in terms of that color. They did like band under that color a little bit, but also like, similar stances on climate change and integrity commissions and all these sorts of things. They lost some to them, and also the Greens picked up heaps because climate change and all that sort of stuff. So that meant that Labor had to gain more. They were down 2, so they would have had to have gotten 9 kind of more in order to get to that point. So where we've ended up, and I've got the live numbers in front of me here from the ABC because there's a lot of seats still in doubt. We know the ALP have won because they have essentially called 72 seats in favour of the Labor Party.
Yeah.
And they need 76 to form majority, sorry. And the LNP are at 52. So there's a 20-seat split. I'm going to say that again, and I'm going to say it slower. There's a 20-seat split between Labor and the Libs. The Libs lost like 25 seats.
Oh my God, say it again, a bit slower.
They lost 25 seats.
Oh God.
And this one goes out to Georgina in Pakenham. Anyway, ALP's at 72 seats, so they need 4 more to form a majority. But there's a whole lot of seats in doubt. But if those seats, Labor have to pick up at least 4 of those seats. If they don't get to the 76, it means that this large group of independents and extra green seats that are supposed to prop up as well, because some of the Greens ones are in contention. But sidebar, that's a huge get. There was always just one Greens representative in the House of Reps, Adam Bant, for the seat of Melbourne. But they've picked one up in Queensland in the seat of Griffith and the seat of Ryan as well.
Big deal.
I think so. Yeah, so I think they got up to 3. So that's 3 right there. So that's a triple. They've tripled their amounts. The seat of Brisbane in Queensland has the Green in the lead, but they haven't called it yet here on the ABC. So that's a potential and likely 4th. And then there's the seat of McNamara, which is the next electorate over from me, which is in contention. Looks like the Labor guy might retain it, though. So we're looking at anywhere between 3 to 5 Greens people in the House of Reps, which is unheard of.
Yes.
On top of all these independents, and Labor might not even get to the 76, which means they have to actually work with the Greens or the Teal independents,
who all have a
or whomever, right?
Really strong mandate on climate change. And if I'm completely honest, I think this is kind of a better outcome than Labor winning government outright.
This is great
from my perspective. Right? They're like, but all the advertising from the
chaos, it's risky. Don't risk it. Don't risk voting independent.
You might actually get some action on climate change. Don't fucking risk it. Meanwhile, all the millennials are like, that sounds great. So I'll vote number 1 for the independent then. To the extent that Labor's primary vote in the seat of Kooyong was 6%.
Yep.
6%. And Anthony Green threw some shade at Tanya Plibersek on the panel. He said, if you get a lower vote count, you'll stop getting public money.
Yeah. I think it's
primary vote count goes 4%. Any lower.
I think they said 4% is the number he threw out. If it goes below 4%, you lose money.
That's so rude.
Yeah. So that swing was insane, and it just goes to show
basically everyone in that electorate more or less realized, hey, this Monique Ryan independent lady has got a chance. She's still independent. We think we can rally behind her, and we'll still put our number 2 preference behind whomever, the Greens or Labor or whoever, and they still picked up a couple of primary vote percentage points. But quite honestly, given the strong climate change agenda, pretty much all of those preferences would flow to Monique Ryan anyway. So it's kind of people rally behind it, voted strategically, and got what they wanted. And then the Liberals are like, what did Labor do to fuck this up? A rejection of both major parties in equal measure. It's no.
People finally understand preferential voting.
Yeah. Labor took a bit of a hit, a couple percentage points. Liberals got shot in the fucking head like Old Yeller out the back of the shed. Liberals got taken out the back and spanked. It's slightly different. There's a bit of a difference between the two, but
it's insane. My seat flipped just for the side a little bit. My seat's been a Liberal seat for yonks, and it flipped to an independent, Zoe Daniel. I'm in the seat of Goldstein.
Suck shit, Tim Wilson. Eat shit.
Tim Wilson. Fuck off, mate.
Eat shit.
You, as someone said online, you can use some of your super to buy some tissues, cunt. Yeah, suck it, Tim. Suck it. Oh, it felt so good. I was driving back from your place today, George, when I swung by to say hey, and I passed his campaign office where there was a huge billboard of him above it, and I just cackled. I think I just wound down the window and just went, So I went past because it was just so good to know that his stupid face is sad.
I just, I'm like, I don't,
makes me happy.
obviously we don't want to spend the entire podcast gloating, but we will spend another 10 minutes. Anyway, so it is crazy that even like safe seats, you know, like seats that have, I think the seat of Menzies that my mother is in, I don't think they've called that yet, but it's like close.
It's real close.
It's close enough to be in doubt, which is crazy because the seat of Menzies is named after Sir Robert Menzies, who was like chief swing and dick of the Liberal Party and has never gone Labor. It is a seat that is not just safe, it is like the fortress of solitude of safe Liberal seats. And the fact that it's even in contention is fucking crazy.
And this is how in contention it is. This is actually like, you know, there's some where it's like, oh, it's close, but it's probably not going to move. As of, so the ABC updated this seat 4 hours ago, according to this, with the Liberal guy sitting at 50.4% and the Labor woman sitting at 49.6%. The Liberal guy is ahead by 624 votes.
Oh, let it never be said that your vote doesn't count. Let it never be said. So many people, because I used to live in that seat, and I remember thinking and feeling that same thing of like, man, I'm a lefty in this seat that is full of right-wingers. My vote doesn't count. And guess what? It does fucking count. All you need is 9 years of scandals, rorts, rapes, bulldozing, Hawaii, floods, fires, Scott Morrison, sports rorts, car park rorts. All you need is a full decade of that, and even that seat too can become marginal. There's still a bunch of people. It's not guaranteed, but you know some people are on the fence.
I'll take marginal over just sweeping through.
I will bathe in marginal.
Yes, let's not spend the entire time gloating, but I think there's a lot to talk about just sort of around it, especially in the fallout. Because we had our election viewing at your place last night, George. It was a big night. That's why I came back to your place today to pick up my car because it was unsafe for me to drive.
That's how you know it was a good night. Is when the car gets left at the house. That's how you know it's a good night.
Yeah, it was a good night. But yeah, it was like A, throughout the coverage, and then B, afterwards, is when we've seen, like, not only, A, how did Labor fuck this up and let independents take their seats, which is ridiculous, but then also talking to Simon Birmingham on the ABC panel of representing the Liberal Party, being like, so, how are you feeling about this? And then afterwards, saying... He said this morning, like, clearly following the defeat that we suffered last night, the coalition needs to reposition and seriously consider action on climate change and listening to women. I was like, like, I'm glad, like, that's the right lesson to take from it, but it's a lesson we've been screaming at you for years. Like, you last took power in 2019, and then the whole country caught fire, and the Hawaii thing happened, and everyone was screaming at you to do something about climate change. You're like, no.
You got to trust Simon Birmingham. You got to trust the Liberals to just learn the correct lesson eventually, years too late. He said
years too late.
This morning on Insiders, he said that part of the reason they lost also was because of the same-sex marriage vote. It was unnecessarily long. Quote, it was ultimately resolved, but it should have been resolved by a conscience vote at a much earlier point in time, Birmingham told ABC's Insiders. Yes, but I don't think that was...
Everyone was saying to you back then as well, you have no excuse for not knowing that right now. Either you've been blocking your ears, or you're woefully incompetent. Which is it?
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
But like, yes, I mean, that is bad. And it was a bad look for the LNP at the time. But I don't think any of the voters that went to the polls this weekend had gay marriage in. They were just like, you know, they're a pack of untrustworthy pricks, and that's why I can't bring myself to hold my nose and vote for them. Like,
one of the many things that was in the pile that made them think,
it's like,
let's get rid of it. You can't just pin it purely on
correct, but it wasn't just the gay marriage stuff. It was like years of incompetence, rorting, misogyny, like professional level, A grade, black tar heroin, pure incompetence.
It was just... Yeah, just a decade of fuckery is what got you here.
They're like, no, I'm pretty sure it was just the gay marriage thing. Everything else we nailed.
Yeah, everything else was perfect.
Everything else is pitch perfect. But a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, so it's just, it's just ridiculous to see them like go down that path to be like, oh, maybe we've got a women problem.
Talking to women, as what an
God.
interesting idea. Speaking to women like they're human beings and try to solicit votes by giving them things that they want. It's almost like they're just like men.
It's almost like politics. Politics should be listening to your constituents.
So we've got Anthony Albanese as as Barnaby Joyce keeps calling him. Even as of today, I'm sure someone must have corrected him. Anthony Albanese. It's like Albanese, because everyone, it's your party was slinging, or your coalition was slinging attack ads saying it's not going to be easy under Albanese. There's a rhyme. It's everything. You should know this by now. He's the prime minister.
You think Barnaby Joyce was watching any of those attack ads?
I don't know, maybe. And yeah, we would the thing that we started talking about earlier, and then we completely got lost in Schadenfreude, is that we're going to turn over government in like 2 days. Scott Morrison this morning left. Is it the Lodge? Kirribilli House? Which one?
Kirribilli is, I think, where he was living. I don't think he was living in the Lodge because he's a coward.
Left. Which one?
Kirribilli.
Left Kirribilli House first thing this morning. I can imagine, were they packed up, ready to go, or are they packing all night? Surely they're not doing their own packing. It's like the Tsars. They just have like people, they're ready to run. The plebs are at the gates, ready to start chopping off some heads, and they knew they had to go.
I guess also, I wonder how much, like, I imagine like the Prime Minister's family doesn't live there full time either, right? Like, I thought surely like the family doesn't like that. They probably still live in just their home.
Well, especially after seeing
kept quite secret.
Seeing the polls for the last couple of weeks, they probably, I'm just going to throw a couple of things in a suitcase just in case.
Yeah, maybe they were already packed and good to go. Although I wonder if losing the election night is as good a party as getting knifed. Like, remember all those stories of the getting knifed parties where they like broke granite tables and drank all the wine in the Lodge and stuff? Apparently they go off.
I don't think so. I think it was a sad, Scott Morrison said, Jenny, I didn't throw you under the bus enough. It's your fault that we lost.
Yep.
You stupid cow. I really should have nailed that rendition of April Sun in Cuba. If I'd just done that, this all would have been okay. But just really hadn't mastered the ukulele when I decided to play it on national television.
Yep, national TV. Yeah, so like that gun to the head interview with Jenny was worth it.
Totally worth it.
Totally worth it.
All worth it, Jen.
Totally worth it. I bet she appreciated that.
Totally worth making you a figure of public mockery. It's definitely worth it. So here we have new government daddy, Anthony Albanese, and we're just going to play a little bit of his acceptance speech.
I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. I pay my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging. And on behalf of the Australian Labor Party, I commit to the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. Tonight, the Australian people have voted for change. Earlier tonight, Scott Morrison called me to congratulate myself and the Labor Party on our victory at the election. Scott very graciously wished me well, and I thanked him for that, and I wish him well. And I thank him for the service that he has given to our country as Prime Minister. I also want to acknowledge and thank Jenny Morrison and their two daughters for their contribution and sacrifice as well. My fellow Australians, it says a lot about our great country that the son of a single mum who was a disability pensioner, who grew up in public housing down the road in Camperdown, can stand before you tonight as Australia's Prime Minister. I want to seek our common purpose and promote unity and optimism, not fear and division. Together, we can end the climate wars. And tomorrow, together, we begin the work of building a better future.
And that was Anthony Albanese talking to the Labour supporters at the party afterwards. So some of them were getting a bit rowdy there. I don't know if you remember last night. Did you see the speech live, or did you catch it afterwards?
No, I didn't catch the acceptance speech.
Who is this mysterious man, Anthony Albanese, that nobody knows anything about?
The ABC had that in the can, in the sidebar. I remember. I think. When I got home last night, like looking at just the ABC homepage on the app on my phone, and like the third article down was, "Who is Anthony Albanese?" I'm like, you had that ready to go. Come on. Shut up. We know who he is. We just elected the fuck. We know who he is.
You have to love this who is. And well, you know what though? Like, we made fun of the media narrative of being like, who is Anthony Albanese? But like, apparently one of the most popular Google search queries on election day was, which party is ScoMo? So like, I don't know, maybe there are hundreds of thousands of people that we share this country with that are just room temperature IQ, like medical morons.
It might not be an IQ intelligence kind of issue. It can really just be complete disengagement.
The party that's been in charge for how do you not even like, you didn't even walk past a newspaper stand at some point. You just happened to catch who the prime minister, you don't fucking know? You're Googling it on the day? How is it possible? I don't even watch commercial television, and I've got, there's a hole in your budget, dear Labour, dear Labour. It's just going around and around in there. It's just bouncing around the inside of my head like a fucking 22 caliber bullet. I don't even watch commercial TV, and somehow that made its way in there. But you're telling me that there's hundreds of thousands of people who are voting age adults who do not know which party the ScoMo is in. How is it possible?
No, all right. Yeah, when you put it like that, I don't know how it's possible.
I don't know. We share a country with idiots. But thank you, idiots. You did the right thing and voted for not Scott Morrison, which is all I ever asked.
Yeah, they could have been Googling it just to know who not to vote for.
That's true. Which party is ScoMo? So I can not vote there.
So I can not do that.
Yes.
Now, another part about this election that I wanted to talk about, and it stems from...
Sorry to interrupt, Tom. Just breaking news. Craig Kelly is not the Prime Minister of Australia, which is a shame. I really thought that was going to work out for him, but
fuck yeah! My fingers and toes were crossed after I got that text message on Friday night about how we're selling all our hospitals to the World Health Organization.
Can you fucking believe that shit? That doesn't get
do that.
That doesn't get a mention. But Lee Sales, no joke, right before she cuts to Anthony Albanese's victory speech.
Oh, what?
Wants to have Tanya Plibersek and Simon Birmingham fight about the Mediscare campaign from 2016. That's what she wanted to start arguing about. I was like, man, Lee Sales, I'm so glad you're retiring because you will not be fucking missed. We're not talking about the fake fucking boats that were intercepted from Sri Lanka and Peter Dutton, the day of the election, announces that they're stopping more boats. No, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the thousands, tens of thousands of illegal text messages sent by the Palmer United Party with patently false information attached to them to influence voters the day of an election. We're not talking about any of that shit. What we're talking about is how Labor kind of exaggerated the threat that Medicare was under 2 election cycles ago. That's what we're talking about, Lee Sales. Seriously, bro?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean,
I used to have so much respect for her, and over the last year, it's just absolutely fucking evaporated, man. I can't even tell you.
Well, yeah, and it's the kind of stuff that it speaks back to the whole institutionalist nature of a lot of the media stuff. I feel dirty. I feel like I'm sounding like one of those like mainstream media,
bro. MSM.
Media man, do your own research. Do your own research on Breitbart. Like a fucking idiot.
Do your own research on a screenshot of a Facebook page sent around by WhatsApp. You know, research.
Yeah, research. The one thing that they couldn't seem to wrap their heads around, and it was happening, I saw it a lot this morning in follow-up interviews with some of the independents that won, like the Teal independents, and then last night as well, interviewing Simon Holmescourt, who member of Climate 200, who are backing a lot of the Teal Independents, like they made donations to them and stuff. He got interviewed last night, and it's like the media can't wrap their head around the idea that the Teal Independents are not a party. They just can't fathom that there's several people who agree on something and they're not a political party.
Yeah, they're trying to make it out like it's something sinister, like they're coordinating and it's somehow, some big fucking conspiracy, Climate 200. Where's this money come from? Who are these Climate 200 people? What fucking sinister thing? I was like, what you're describing is election funding. When Santos does
donations.
It, when Rio Tinto does it, when BP does it, not a big deal. And it's like, okay.
It's ridiculous. And
you can argue whether or not it's like fair and right and just for political parties to be influenced by donations or not. Personally, I think it should be all public funded and there shouldn't be any donations whatsoever. But like, just because the other side is also doing the thing that you do doesn't make it like illegal or wrong or like somehow sinister. It's just the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's playing the game. And when Simon Holmescourt was being interviewed about it, like last night in the middle of a party celebrating the Kooyong win of Dr. Monique Ryan, they were saying things like, "So what's your involvement in going forward?" And he was like, "What? I donated. Like we donated to the party, and it was like 2% or something. It's like I donated money to the party. To like Climate 200 contributed this much to these campaigns,
to various Teal Independents. Yeah,
that's it. Like, I'm not going to be on the board dictating policy. My involvement is over.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And I don't know how you don't wrap your heads around that. And they were trying to get him on, like, are you afraid now that since, independents that you've funded have unseated, quote-unquote, moderate liberals, that now the party's going to just go further right? And he said, I think the right thing, which was, no, they were already there. Like, we're not going to push them to the right. They already went there. And these moderates weren't moderate at all. It was fake moderation.
Well, it might be moderate in terms of the way that they speak to their constituents in Wentworth.
But they don't vote that way.
Or all this sort of thing is softer on climate change. But the way they vote is exactly the same as Barnaby Joyce, is exactly the same as, every other right-wing shitbag in the party, because that's how parties work. So...
Yeah.
You could call them
they're
moderates,
already there.
But like, that's the thing which I found infuriating about all of this. It's like, oh, but how does this impact the Liberal Party? I'm like, I don't care. I don't care how it impacts the Liberal Party because they're not in fucking government anymore. They can go out into the wilderness and be, conservative right-wing sociopaths all they want. I don't give a shit because they don't hold government anymore. So if they want to keep being that way and keep not being in government, fucking great. Like, that is the best outcome for me.
Do it. But yeah, they were just, and every interview I saw them have, like this morning with one of the independents on their victory was all about, it was essentially framing questions around, are you guys a party? Like, because you all want action on climate change and you all want an integrity commission and you all want better, less inequality and all these sorts of things. And they're saying like, yeah, like we're not a party. We'll be working as colleagues together, and as to whether or not we back policy. And I look forward to working with them and working with the incoming Labor government. Blah blah blah. And it's like, how do you not wrap your head around the idea that there are people who have ideas, similar ones,
people
and are
that
like-minded?
Yeah,
exactly. Like I'd say, probably all the independents think that murder is wrong. Yep. They're not a party because they all think murder's bad.
I'm pretty sure we're part of the anti-murder party now together, Tom. One of the dumbest things Lisa Ailes said was that she said, if Labor and Liberal got together in a coalition, then you guys would be unbeatable, basically. You'd have like 2/3 of the vote.
Didn't she say about Labor and the Greens? Was it? Or... No,
it was about Labor and Liberal.
Was it Labor and Liberal? Okay,
that was my understanding. Maybe I misunderstood and I'm not giving her enough credit. But that's what a minority government and inevitably ends up being, right? It's a coalition between Labor, the Greens, and the Teal Independents in this case. But it's like, it's so funny. They're like, oh, Labor's primary vote's only, it's only 1/3 of the electorate. They really fucked up. Well, how much is the coalition? The coalition being a coalition of two parties, being the Liberal Party and the National Party. They're like, oh, well, it's like 35%. So it's like,
Yeah.
they got fucking crushed. But it's like what they do as a coalition as well. The Labour and the Greens aren't in an official coalition, I guess, because it doesn't benefit them from a marketing perspective to do that, because then they'll get hit for being like, siding with the Greens.
Oh, you pinko commies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but let's be honest, as soon as Labour forms a minority government, guess who's getting a knock on the door? Hey, Adam Bant from the Greens. How's it going, buddy?
Hey,
do you want to make government? Do you want to make a government or what? We're definitely not going to negotiate unless we need to negotiate, in which case we will immediately negotiate.
Yeah.
No, but I understood you were saying like Labour and the Liberals should form a party together. And I was like, yeah, except for the fact that one of them is filled with extremists who don't believe in climate change and don't want to do anything about it and hold completely different values. Like, aside from that, it'd be a great fucking idea.
Yeah, aside from the fact that they don't get along, they would totally get along.
And agree on nothing.
Yeah, it's just to feel so elated by what's happened, but also it's so like, it's like they still found a way to dig the boot in like just how they're not getting it, like just how both like how it's being reported on, and then the political fallout from all the people who've lost, like fucking Frydenberg. Can we talk about Frydenberg for a minute?
Of course, tell me. What?
We've mentioned Frydenberg already, that he lost his seat.
He got up today and made a speech that didn't say quite anything. It was just like a non-concession.
Oh, his one this morning.
Yeah.
I thought this morning his one was really like, the one this morning was all just like, I'm not conceding until all the postal votes have been counted, when every analyst is like, you lost it,
It's
bro.
not really possible to win.
It's not really possible. But yeah, last night he got up to do a speech and everyone's like, he's conceding. And then he essentially gave a concession speech
without conceding. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he just did the sorry, like the sad, like I've been so honored and I love my family and I love this community that just burdened me out. And he said something in it where I was just like, fuck you, man. Because he said like, not only like people weren't voting for me, they were voting for the party and the values that it stood for. Like, they were voting for the Liberal Party person because this community like believed in them and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, not tonight, they didn't, bro. Like, mate, either they hate you or they hate your party. Which is it? Because it can be both. And he told some story of like, when I was at a pre-polling booth the other night, a man came up to me in tears and said, "Thank you, Josh, for saving my small business." And we're all like, that never happened.
Never happened. That's not a call that anyone has ever made. I love Barry Cassidy's tweet on this. Disappointed the ABC could not even congratulate Tanya Plibersek for Labour's win, but instead they should be embarrassed about the Greens winning a couple of seats. Reset, guys. You don't have to be cowed anymore. You don't have to be scared of the Liberal Party saying that you're not balanced enough. Like, you can congratulate the other side on their victory. It's okay. Yeah, it's really, they absolutely need a reset. I don't know if they're trying to appear like fair and balanced, or if they're really just institutionalists and they just don't fucking get that someone could be an independent, or that, like maybe they just genuinely are so high on their own supply of mainstream media news that they just genuinely don't understand what's happened. Because I feel like all of these mainstream journalists spend all of their day like reading mainstream journalism.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's part of the job.
They're all just kind of like consuming, breathing each other's farts. And they all, you know what I mean? They're just in a car hotboxing the same trash, like shit hot takes over and over again, just recycling. And there's just like no fresh air that's getting in. But it's like, I don't think this means what you think it means. And like all of your takes, all of your hot takes about how the Teal independents weren't going to get up and it wasn't important and it didn't mean anything, like, well, obviously you were fucking dead ass wrong about all of that. So I don't know.
I think also
your hot take is as good as my hot take, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that, and they also just haven't seen this before.
Yeah.
Like, that yes, we had a hung parliament 10 years ago, but that was a hung parliament compared to this. Like, they're all talking about a hung parliament in the lead up to this, I think, because people understood the reference from what had happened back in 2010. But that's different. That's when the parties are neck and neck. and it's whoever can negotiate and guarantee supply first becomes government. Whilst this is overwhelmingly, we know who the government's going to be. Now it's a matter of who they're going to have to work with to get anything done. And it's the thing of like, there is no bulletproof, this is how a government should function that is guaranteed to be perfect. Like, the whole thing of like, a dictatorship sounds great if your dictator's not a corrupt piece of shit. Like if they're a good person who wants the best for everyone. But people being people and people being garbage, that's not how that works. But so in this instance, yeah, the idea of like there's a party that's definitely the majority, but they do have to appease like locally represented views on things as a check and balance sounds like a great system to do. And I'm happy with that. When that crossbench isn't a bunch of crazy people. Like if it was a thing of the Liberals were at 72 seats and the remaining independents were like 10 Bob Catters, I'd be like, fuck, this is bad. So, yeah, I just don't think they've seen this kind of thing before. Just a really grassroots movement getting this much traction. Not only
maybe that's why they
3 green seats and like 8 independents or whatever it is. They've never seen this before, and it breaks their brains because it's not the 2-party system.
Yeah, it is funny. They are just completely set in their ways, focused on exactly the wrong things. And it is so frustrating to watch. Like today, for example, on Insiders, David Spears had an interview with Richard Marles, the deputy leader, or deputy prime
of the
minister
Labor Party.
Of the Labor Party. And he asked him, accounted 4 different ways what portfolio he wanted. And Richard Marles is like, well, obviously, Albo and I have talked about it. He's going to announce that. I'm not going to take that away from him. You'll find out tomorrow. And David Spears was like, let me come at this another way. Are you going to be on the plane to Tokyo? Like saying, are you going to be sort of, defense minister? Like trying to figure it out. He asked him 4 different ways what seats he was going to have. And it's like, guys, I don't know how to break this to you. Nobody fucking cares. Richard Marles does not care. He's picked a portfolio. You will find out in 24 hours which portfolio he has chosen, and then you will know. And then in 24 hours, you'll be going, what? Well, what about what's next for Richard Marles? Does he want to be leader? It's all this like horse race jockeying. They're so much more interested in like the high school drama of the thing than just like, so Barry Cassidy tweeted, the discussions around how the Liberals will cope is nauseating. Guys, we have a new government. Discuss. What is the new government who just won the election going to do with their newfound power? Like, maybe let's ask them about that rather than, whoa, Richard, well, Albo said that you pashed his girlfriend. And so what do you reckon about that? Because I reckon you should say that you should pash his girlfriend because then he'd be really, like, it's all this like schoolroom horseshit fucking 4 different times he asked him what portfolio. He wasted minutes of airtime asking Richard Marles a question that he knew that he would know the answer to in 24 hours. And that is why I despise the mainstream media.
And a question, like an answer that like 24 hours ahead isn't a scoop. Like it's not like something that people will be
no
like,
one cares.
Stop the presses. Like, no one gives a shit.
Defense? No way.
No way.
Like, as if anyone knows or cares what, who the front benchers are at this stage. It's like this tiny group of like, I really think that's the best way to describe it. People in a car in Canberra, just like hotboxing on each other's dumb fuck opinions. That's what it feels like. And it does not represent what people in the community care about. So no wonder they were fucking taken by surprise by the Teal independents. I wasn't fucking taken by surprise. Do you know why? Because I was on the fucking ground and I saw the signs. I saw the signs that people had up for Monique Ryan in their fucking yards, on their fucking buildings, on their fucking, stores. And you know what I saw? I saw a bunch of signs for Josh Frydenberg that were paid advertising. They were up on billboards. They were up on telephones. They were up on, paid advertising spots. And I saw the Monique Ryan volunteers on a Saturday night, well after everyone else is out to dinner, still there in the building, getting ready for the next day. I saw
working. Doing the work.
grassroots enthusiasm on the ground, and that makes me think they're probably going to win. But it was a complete surprise to everyone over at Insiders HQ, because they're completely disconnected from the reality of what's actually going on. They've got their boxes and their screens behind them and their graphics and their Casey Briggs, and they've got all this data, but they're not actually like connected with what people are going through on the ground. So it's like, of course you got taken by surprise because you have no fucking clue what's actually going on out there. Like,
yeah, it's just.
Am I being too harsh on the media? As someone who's studied journalism, Tom, am I being too harsh?
I mean, it's pretty harsh in the sense of like David Spears is an example with asking the same question sort of 4 times. Is that it's like, you don't want to be taking, you don't want to take a no for an answer, sort of.
But
in a
why
way.
do you
because,
care about the answer to the question?
Yes, it was more that it's a bad question. I think persistence on a question. Like,
that's fine.
Come at it from other angles, ask him in other ways, because you don't want them just to be able to go, no comment, and just accept it. But it's also like, Spearsy, I think there were better, more pressing things you should have been asking him about.
But why? Okay, but like Simon Birmingham, senior Labor, LNP, Liberal senator, was on later on. And guess what? Guess who didn't get any fucking interruptions? Guess who there were no questions about like, hey, Peter Dutton, the person who was slated to be probably leading your party, said a bunch of what we think is real false horseshit about, boats being intercepted from Sri Lanka, which I got to be careful what I say here. There is some disagreement about how legitimate this expedition was. Okay, let's put it that way. The people on Twitter are being a lot more spicy about what they're saying about this, but there's a boat that came from Sri Lanka that was intercepted, and you're the guy who's supposed to be the leader of your party coming up texted millions of people on election day to try and sway their votes. Maybe ask Simon Birmingham any questions about that. No, it's all about how the Libs going to get back in. We all agree they're the party of adults. How are they going to get back in next time? How's this going to affect? How are the feelings over at Liberal headquarters?
Liberal HQ.
It's just like, it's like, just like,
so bad.
It's just unreal. Like, it makes me feel crazy watching it. It makes me feel like I'm a crazy person. I feel gaslit by David Spears.
Yeah, where were the days where David Spears was just the brown note for politicians?
Bring me back those days. Back in the day, I feel like on Sky News, people would go on his program and he was like a bulldog. Him. He would make them shit their pants. And now he's gone to lefty communist ABC. All of a sudden he's become, a hero, a hero to the right. It's just fucking bizarre. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Just any questions about the fake text messaging campaign? Just one question about it.
All that sort of shit.
The guy who's going to lead your party pulled a dodgy as fuck stunt on election day. Do you want to maybe answer any questions about it? No. Let's talk about gay marriage in 2017. That seems timely.
Oh yeah, very timely.
You fucking shill, honestly, David.
Speaking of timely, timely in the sense that it couldn't have happened. Couldn't have happened any sooner and to a nicer person. It looks like Pauline Hanson's gonna fuck off.
Bye, cunt. See you later, bitch.
She's poised to lose her Senate spot. Because, she was up for re-election this time around because Senate seats 6-year terms. So she was elected back in 2016 after her long absence, her blissful absence. It looks like maybe a Green.
She was out of politics for some time because of a voter fraud scandal, if I recall correctly. She was in jail and then it got overturned.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff.
What a delightful figure to have in Australian politics.
But it looks like she might be losing her seat to a Greens candidate in an extra level of just delicious chef's kiss perfection.
I'm just so used to getting
election.
I'm so used to getting kicked in the dick at election time. I'm not used to things going my way. And so if I'm overly giddy, if I'm overly excited, I apologize. And maybe I should be more gracious in victory. But Pauline,
you know what?
Suck eggs and day. Suck shit.
Pauline, you're going to have a lot of time to think about squat toilets in retirement.
Squatty toilets.
No.
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 Oh, God, I hate you, Pauline.
She's rubbish. And she's gone. Like rubbish, in
Well,
the bin.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, in the bin. And she had to watch her defeat while in isolation with COVID-19 after refusing to get vaccinated. So jog on, Pauline. Oh, absolute dumpster fire.
Oh, we share the speediest of recoveries, of course.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the speediest of recoveries so she can get back in the bin. Yeah, so no, that's some good news as well. Fuck, I'm trying to think of, is there anything else from the election I want to cover? There's just so much that's going on. Oh, on who would be leader, because yes, so Scott Morrison, we didn't really talk about Scott Morrison's loss. He gave his speech where he somehow talked about people in the defense force and people with cystic fibrosis for some reason. I don't know why he brought that up. He was just listing a whole bunch of bullshit.
You notice he didn't at any point mention like women?
Nah.
Like, nurses or teachers or, people, frontline workers who got us through the pandemic or any of just not even a passing, not even like a doff of the hat, like a fake mention just to keep the lefties happy. It was like, that muscular dystrophy thing, that was fucking bizarre. I don't know what was going on.
Super fucking weird. But it's
just like word salad. Like,
yeah, he also just immediately went back on a statement that he made earlier in the week, which was that he was not going to resign. Like, he wasn't gonna, like, people said, if you lose the election, are you gone? Are you just gonna like drop the leadership and resign? And he was like, nah, not gonna do that. And then he promptly did it. Yeah. On the election night. He hasn't resigned, as in he won his seat, and he's going to just be a backbencher for that seat.
He'll be a backbencher for as long as it takes to get a job at Santos, earning 5 times what he's making as prime minister, and then he'll yeet out of there quietly in a couple of months.
Yeah. So he's going to be renouncing the leadership at the next party room meeting, which is expected to be in the next couple of days, I think.
I love that there's no like massive lame duck period where it's like it goes on for like 4 months, like over in the US where like Biden got elected in November and then it was like January 6th, before he actually got what's the word, sworn in,
inaugurated
months later. Then you got this weird lame duck period where I guess if
the
you're
president
a piece
just does everything they can,
if you're a complete piece of shit like Trump, you plan an insurrection in the intervening 60 something days, like.
But so anyway, with Scott Morrison on the way out, speculation has already started beginning as to who's going to be the next leader. And, there's been names thrown around left, right, and center. But of course, Peter Dutton is now considered the front runner because Josh Frydenturd lost his seat. And I just find that amazing. Speaking of them, like, the Liberal Party learning the right lessons way too late. I can't believe they see, wow, we got absolutely like fucked at that election. Maybe we should listen to women more. Maybe we should have some action on climate change. And maybe our leader should be even more unpopular. Like, there are people like that I know, like anecdotally, who have said, like, that they've been like Liberal voters for their whole lives. And they always had said, though, if Peter Dutton had won that leadership contest instead of Scott Morrison, they wouldn't have voted Liberal last election. Like, it's just like, no, even before it was as toxic a brand as it is now, people were like, not a Peter Dutton Liberal Party. Hell fucking no. But no, he's tipped to be the next leader because they think that's the right thing to do.
I mean, I don't...
He barely held on to his seat as well. He only held it like just...
I know he's like the Lord of Darkness and everything, but don't you think it'd be good to run against him? Like, yes, there is the small chance that he might actually win. But like, I know we'll never fully vanquish him until we collect all of the Horcruxes, but I really do feel as though Peter Dutton would be the person you would want to run against if you're Labour, because I feel like it's a fairly active call to action there. But yeah, Samantha Maiden said on Insiders, she's a political editor over at the Herald Sun, I think, saying that Dutton would be a great opposition leader. and you could replace him with someone nicer later.
That shouldn't be your strategy.
No.
I'm not a political
he's great because
strategist.
he's a piece of shit and he'll be a nasty as fuck cunt in opposition. But then you can replace someone nice to actually get elected. That's Samantha Maiden's A+ strategy there.
It's like, then you can replace him with someone nicer later, because just like revolving door replacing your leaders has been such a popular look.
Very successful.
So
way
great
of going about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was never ripped to shreds, especially in my newspaper. Like, what? It's all right. You know, as you said, George, if they want to walk into the wilderness and be even more dumb fuck stupid, 10 out of 10. No notes from me. Go to town.
Yeah.
Make it like Peter-topia in your weird little hovel that you're going to go crawl into while we, I don't know, save the planet from dying.
I really do. Yeah, I really don't give a fuck about what the internal goings on of the Liberal Party, especially now that they're not in government. What I'm concerned about is how are we going to do all of the things that we want to do. And some of that includes...
undo all the damage.
Undo the damage that they've done over the last 9 years. Quintupled the debt over the last 9 years, times it by 5, and then had the balls to run an ad saying there's a hole in your budget, dear Labor, when they've been running deficits since I was shitting in my nappies. But that's okay. I don't care. I actually don't, for all the dumping that we've done on the Liberal Party. Like, they're a bunch of pricks with whom I do not agree. We need to focus on the business of, we've got fucking 10 years left to do something really substantial about the climate. Like,
heck, even less. I thought we got the 10-year warning like a few years ago.
Is that a year or so ago? We need to do, like, what I care about is like, how are we going to achieve our many, many goals? That's what I want to hear reporting on ad nauseum, nonstop. If I'm not hearing about fucking carbon credits 18 hours a day for the next 5 years, then the media's fucked up. Like, it really needs to be about doing things. That's what,
radically doing them. Like, that's the thing that I've sort of really seen change about myself over the past like couple of years, because I've seen people be like, someone like Josh Frydenberg, like, or whatever, like, but they seem to be one of the nicer ones. Like, should we maybe not kick them out? Like, then they should have been better in Parliament. Like, I don't care. Like, we don't have time. So either shit or get off the pot.
It's so funny. Barnaby Joyce today was just saying, leader of the Nationals, who, although we don't know the details, apparently extracted a bunch of concessions out of Scott Morrison to get his support for the leading up to the Copenhagen conference. Scott Morrison wanted to go with something more than his tiny little prick in his hands, and wanted to go with something on, carbon,
some kind of action,
carbon reduction. And so, they announced whatever it was, 50% reduction by 2030. And he had to promise Barnaby Joyce a bunch of shit to get there. Anyway, Barnaby Joyce, we don't know what it was, but we assume there's billions of dollars for an inland rail and all these other things that Barnaby Joyce would want appeared mysteriously in the last budget a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, Barnaby Joyce was on TV saying like, I just really hope they don't, gut regional spending, because it's really important that we're all in this together kind of thing. It's just like, hey, I had to sell my soul to get a bunch of concessions. You can't just turn around and gut them now just because I'm not in charge. It's like, actually, Barnaby, we can. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, we can. ICAC.
Oh, God. Can you imagine a federal ICAC? The first thing that Anthony Albanese said, retrospective as fuck. We're looking back ages, bro. We're going to look back 10 fucking years with this ICAC. Why? What? Just because you did a bunch of corrupt shit and you're like, oh, but that was 5 years ago. And? Is it a crime?
Yep.
Oh, retrospective as fuck. It's going to be excellent.
It's going to be great. He said a lot of great things in his speech, actually.
The first thing was like about recognizing the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which I did not expect. Did not expect them to like, to be like, and we're going to implement all of those recommendations. And
but I find it interesting.
Like the first thing that they brought up.
Unless I missed it, I don't remember them talking about any of that in campaigning.
No, definitely
and that's
not.
what makes me kind of go like, oh, they've seen they've seen that it wasn't as big a bloodbath as they hoped, so they're going to drop all this shit. Like, that's cynical me talking, but being like, they clearly had different speeches prepared as to how much they need to be dragged over the center line to the left by independents or Greens or whatever. But like, good, that's the fucking point.
You're saying the quiet part out loud now. That's fantastic.
That's great.
We got 3 years.
Yeah, so
we got 3 years before this is going to get dragged back to the center again. We do not have time to fuck around on this. We need to we need to move on this shit, and we need to move now, because I'm not counting on a second term of the Albanese government. I can almost guarantee that it's not going to happen. So,
well, ScoMo was the only prime minister you or I have ever elected who served a full term
since John Howard. Yeah.
Yeah, so like the very first election I participated in was the Kevin 07 election, and he didn't survive first term. So ScoMo's the only prime minister that I have ever an election I participated in where the victor lasted an entire term.
Yeah, I really hope those days are behind us of knifing. I really think like they've got a mandate, they've got a pretty clear agenda, they've got some these climate change independents, they've got the Greens. Like there is a crossbench that is all fully united on a bunch of issues. It shouldn't be that hard to get stuff through.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But it's got to be big. It's got to be massive change. We don't have time to fuck around.
Just as a quick 2-sentence sort of thing, shout out to WA.
Yeah.
WA really brought it home. Their swing towards Labor during the election was like over 10%. 10.9%. So like, God, they were the Queensland of this election. Like last time where we were all like, oh, and then Queensland came in and just the Libs like ripped through us.
Yeah.
WA did that, but for Labor this time round. So yeah, on your WA, you did it.
It was just watching the coverage, and they had the percentage, and they showed how much the drop was against the Liberal Party, and it was just Snoop just dropping it like it's hot.
There should have been like
dropping it like the sacks of shit that they are. Just
should have been an
curtain, boom, through the floor, bang, through the floor, just one after another. I was like, holy shit.
When Spearsy got up with those graphics, there should have been a content advisory warning. Just it was pornographic how great those numbers were.
It's all right. It was late night. It was after 9:30. It's okay.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Now, we've been at this for bang on an hour now. I knew the election would probably take up the whole hour.
Yep.
Do we want to quickly just cover the fact that George Bush said the quiet part loud this week?
Sure, we can do that. So George Bush, 75-year-old former war criminal, has decided to...
You ever stop being a war criminal? If you've done a war crime... That's a good question,
yeah.
Like, it's the thing of like, always in TV shows, people are like, I hear you used to be an alcoholic. It's like, you never stop being an alcoholic. Like, you're just sober now. It's like, yeah, he'll always be a war criminal, right?
He'll always be a war criminal to me. So George Bush was making a speech
at the
about
George
Ukraine.
W. Bush Institute.
I don't know who the fuck is asking George Bush to speak about shit. Who really needs his fucking sage advice from this old Texan cocaine addict? But
well, I mean, when you're at the George W. Bush Institute, I assume you want to hear from George W. Bush. But
okay, you're right. It's self-selecting. You're right.
Yeah,
anyway, here's George Bush just saying the quiet part out loud.
In contrast, Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, too. Anyway, 75. In contrast, Russia.
Little Freudian slip you got going on there.
What I meant was Ukraine.
Iraq too.
Iraq too.
It's the little Iraq too.
What I loved is the the hundreds of thousands of dead, and the you know how I mess up, hundreds of thousands dead.
Because at first, I had to watch it a second time to pick up the little Iraq too that he threw in there, because I was just like, oh, Oh, little slip there. Remember that brutal invasion you did? You didn't mean to say that. But then he did mean to say, Iraq too. He compared himself to the thing he's saying's
To
bad.
the war criminal.
He acknowledged it. Like, I know for the decades since, it's all been like spun and justifications and just all this sort of shit. But no, he straight up said, oh yeah, my decision to launch a unjustified, brutal invasion of Iraq. Holy shit.
Was it just one of those things where it's like, he went in there and he goes, okay, I'm obviously talking about an unjustified invasion. Don't say Iraq. Don't say Iraq. Don't say Iraq. Iraq. Fuck. Was it like one of those moments, like someone got in his head, like, whatever you do, don't mention Iraq. Like,
maybe,
it's just like, great.
The
thing that I will not mention is the word Iraq. Iraq is the thing which I will not mention. Iraq. Fuck.
I think it's just pure muscle memory in his mouth. Like, the amount of times that he'd say, like, invasion of Iraq, and just that would just come out. So that just came out. But then he said the thing. Like, he Freudian slipped, and then he said, yeah, that was a Freudian slip. Yeah, I meant that. Like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that either. You know, that unjustified invasion that I launched that, like, started yet another forever war?
I'm 75. I basically got away with it. So
I'm
it doesn't matter.
I'm 75. I'm 4 years younger than the president.
Yeah. Yeah. This old 75-year-old man who doesn't know shit about fuck. I'm younger than the president.
I'm younger than the current president. I'm younger than the corpse that we have running the country right now.
This old 75-year-old bag of bones doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Anyway, always respect your elders, Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's just like, is satire dead?
I think it's beyond. We don't need to. The people think we write jokes. We don't write jokes anymore. We just say facts, and because of the framing device of the show, they are seen as humorous statements because of how absurdist the world is.
Yeah.
We've recently graduated from the very darkest timeline to the penultimate darkest timeline, in that we managed to defeat the libs this time around. It really would have been the very darkest timeline if we kept along that trajectory. So we've gone from universe 6 to universe 5, but like, it's still pretty fucking grim.
Yeah, super grim. And just and then he can crack that gag. And then it's like, there's no consequences.
Yeah. Oh, like, no, nothing matters. Nothing changed.
Like, no, there'll be no consequences. Like, I mean, it's one thing to like come out and say, oh, maybe a policy decision that we made was the wrong idea. I've reflected on my presidency and like, you know, maybe that wasn't the right way to go about it and blah, 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 blah. But to straight up say, because it's what he essentially said, I, one man's decision outside of checks and balances, launched a brutal, unjustified invasion of a country. And
he's kind of like, yeah,
won't
you
be
got
a trial. It won't be like an investigation.
George W. Bush is the reason that America has not signed up to the International Criminal Court. He's the reason. He's why. Is because if they did, they would have to answer some very awkward questions about George W. Bush. Right?
Well, and probably a lot of the things afterwards as well, right?
Probably like everything,
drones, all that sort of stuff.
Probably back a long way. Like we'll start at George W. Bush, we'll go all the way back to Nixon, and let's just have the people of Cambodia. Let's let them have the mic, shall we, Henry Kissinger? Like, yeah, it's there's a lot of things that America would actually have to answer for if they joined. So
yeah. And when they're ready to answer for them, they can find us at Unnatural Selection.
On that note, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And you can follow us all down to the George W. Bush Institute, where we will be listening with rapt interest to a man who is definitely not a war criminal. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We will see you next week. I think he's just got some insights. You know, I just want to hear what he's got to say.
I mean, I don't have a lot of insights. People can follow me on Twitter if they want, but really for the next week, I'm just going to be using it to tell Tim Smith, even though Tim Wilson to eat shit. Tim Smith too. Tim Smith sucks, but
All the Tims.
Eat shit, Tim.